Bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs, we got bows, TKOs, yeah. Bows, TKOs.
Bows and TKOs. We are live, episode 87, coming at you from the Valley on this beautiful Thursday evening. I'm your host, Shane Gillette, for this weekly MMA podcast, streaming anywhere you get podcasts and videos on YouTube. Now, what a show we have. A ton of exciting fights in the UFC have been announced. 2 Dana White IG Lives. He's given the people what they want with some fight drops. We had UFC Fight Night Seattle. What a doozy that was. Definitely had some FOMO on that. And then we're back to the Apex for an earlier card this Saturday. I'm rocking my new spring training merch. The couple of years I've lived here, I haven't really liked the spring training. The merch this year, I like the kind of 90s desert vibes it's given, like 90s Diamondbacks. So went all out on the merch this past weekend for Angels Mariners to open up Angels Spring Training in Tempe. So it's right down the road. And shout out to my realtor, Brian Sinnott, for hooking me up with sweet tickets in the Sloan Field, the Cubs ballpark today for the Angels in a 4-4 tie game. That was a really cool setup. I think that's, besides the Diamondbacks, probably the nicest park in all of spring training if you guys ever come here to the Valley. Got my grandma flying in tonight, family coming for the 80th, first time hosting in my new house. It's going to be high 70s and absolutely beautiful. That's what it's all about. But let's jump right into MMA. We have some fights that have been announced. Here on March 23rd, we got a couple bangers. We got some OGs, Vince Pichel and Rafa Garcia, as well as Christian Rodriguez and Melquizil Costa. Melquizil turning around in a month's time frame. We'll talk about that later. Also, sadly, this will be in the Mexico card. Elves Brenner is out. I was really excited for Elves Brenner and Daniel Zellhuber, but Austin Hubbard, tough alum, 2-time UFC stinner, taking on Daniel Zellhuber in Mexico. We have GM3 Gerald Mearshart taking on veteran Brad Tavares April 5th. That should be a doozy. And then for the UFC 313 pay-per-view, Dan Hooker announced he broke his hand. So we will get a rematch of Rafael Fiziev and Justin Gaethje. That was the fight to make. The first fight was a doozy. This one should be great, although this time it's 3 rounds instead of 5. We have Guram Kutateladze finally back against Cowie Fernandez March 22nd. April 5th, we have Davey Grant taking on Daniel Santos. UFC 314 in the O2, we got Tresean Gore taking on Marco Tulio, and Gene Silva with a quick turnaround, calling his shot, asking for Bryce Mitchell. Moving on to April 26th, we had Jamal Hill and Khalil Roundtree Jr. That's the Kansas City main event. 5-rounder, which I highly doubt we see two full rounds. We got a bantamweight showdown, Marlon Vera and Mario Batista. Really excited for that one, as well as Junior Tafa and Tuco Tacos. May 17th, we got Junyong Park taking on Ismail Nardiev. A little shocked about that matchup. This is in Qatar. And Sergey Spivak is taking on Shamil Gaziev in a very good heavyweight showdown, as well as Muhammad Usman and Hamdi Abdelwahab. On May 31st, we have Alan Nascimento and Rafael Filho, as well as Dustin Jacoby taking on Bruno Lopez. And then UFC 315 in Canada, we got Mike Malott versus Charles Radke. You get your heavy dose of Canadians. Jessica Andrade and Jasmine Jazdavicius as she gets a deep end attempt. And then Jose Aldo and Ayman Zahabi. I saw the MMA Guru's rant on what the UFC has booked for Jose Aldo since he came out of retirement. And I definitely agree with him. With all the depth in the bantamweight division, they're just not giving this guy the opportunity. But in my mind, I think they're trying to give him opportunities to win. Since he's been back, he defeated Jonathan Martinez, had the split decision loss against Mario Bautista, and now Ayman Zahabi. But let's talk about what down up in the Northwest. UFC Fight Night Seattle, I went 8-3 in my picks. Hot start to the year overall. Since I've rebranded to Bows and TKOs, 530 wins, 250 losses, 8 no contests or draws. I'm better than 50 on overall. And then on the year, I'm 46, 16, and 1. We're dialing it in. But to recap this card, I mean, the card started with a ton of action. Bukauskas got the action started. All 7 of the fights on the prelims were via finish. You can't ask for more. The decision bouts on the main card were pretty good fights overall. The main event was a scrap before the eye poke. And honestly, the crowd showed up. They were there early. The place was rocking. An amazing atmosphere. I love to see it. Again, I had major FOMO as I thought about going when the location was announced, but was hoping for bigger names. I recapped that an 8 out of 10. I think I previewed it a 6 out of 10. The fights delivered. All the fights that we did not break down were doozies. Some fights we did not break down. We had Modestas Bukauskas opening it up with a round 1 knockout over Rafael Cerqueira. Got that fight right. We also got Nursultan Ruzaboev with a round 2 knockout over Eric McConico. That's about as you expected. Welcome to the UFC, Austin Vanderford with a round 2 TKO over Nikolai Vertenikov. I know nothing about Nikolai, but I wasn't sure if Austin could get the dub. Well done. We had Mansour Abdul Malik with a round 2 TKO over Nick Klein. And Mansour got rocked in the first round with a nice shot by Nick Klein, not being afraid of the giant, but Abdul was able to recover and get the finish in round 2. We had fight of the night, Alonzo Menefield in a very close split decision over Julius Walker. 50 G's for those boys. And man, Julius Walker, from being a collegiate basketball player, is the most toughest hooper I've ever seen because he took some shots and gave some as well. He did not stop coming forward. And I did not break this down because I assumed this would be a quick knockout, and it was. We had Gene Silva with a round 1 knockout over Melsik Bagdasaryan. Performance of the night. 50 G's for Gene Silva and the Fighting Nerds. But we'll kick this off in the prelims. I tried telling y'all, Ricky Simone, the Vancouver, Washington hometown hero, with a round 1 knockout over Javid Basharat. 50 G's. There you go, Ricky Simone. And holy cow, that was what we classify a moment. And Ricky needed that to boost his stock in a very deep bantamweight division while he's in his prime. Both men were pretty aggressive to start. Ricky actually even got a takedown of Javid early, but Ricky was starting to feel himself as the round progressed. He landed a beautiful 1, straight 2 down the pipe, clean on the chin, and man, just shut off Basharat's lights. Eyes rolled back into the head, the whole 9. Statistically, it only took Ricky 18 total and significant strikes with the takedown, a knockdown, and 1 minute and 14 seconds of control time. And Javid landed 21 total strikes, 20 of them significant. So Ricky ends his 3-fight losing streak. He starts a new winning streak, and Javid extends his losing streak to 2. He is now a lackluster 1-2-1 since 2023. What's next? I do think Ricky deserves a top quality opponent. I think Chris Gutierrez would be a fantastic fight for him. And for Javid, how about Cody Stamann, which I actually forgot to put this on there. Cody Stamann no longer with the UFC. The UFC announcing a ton of roster cuts, some by surprise, as the Contender Series is continuing to add a ton of talent to the UFC roster. Not only did Cody Stamann lose his UFC roster spot, but so did Roosevelt Roberts, Nathan Levy. Let's see. Matthew Semmelsberger, Jonathan Pierce, a little bit surprising there. Taylor Lapalus as well in his second stint. Josh Kulabau, Julio Arce, and yeah, a big grip of cuts there. So let's quickly come up with a new opponent for Javid Basharat. UFC bantamweight rankings. Let's see. Javid. Still a stud. Plenty of time. Just now getting into his prime window. I wouldn't mind seeing him matched up against Ronnie Yaya. Let's see if Ronnie's still with the UFC. I know a lot of fighters have gone to the GFL roster. He is still in the UFC, so let's give Javid Ronnie Yaya on a bounce back opportunity. Give him a decent winnable fight. Moving on, we had Melquizil Costa with a round one submission via guillotine over Andre Feely. Andre Feely from a suburb in Seattle, Federal Way, was not able to take part of the home crowd fun, and it was just a rough outing for Andre. Costa was very active with his hands to start this fight, and Andre actually went into his grappling pocket, wanted to take him down. He was able to do so, but just had terrible posture while on top, wasn't putting himself in a technical advantage, and as Melquizil kind of slowly and softly put in a guillotine, Andre kind of put himself in a position to get deeper in and had no choice but to tap to the submission. You hate to see a simple submission with such little effort come to fruition there, but you got to give Melquizil Costa props in enemy territory. Statistically, Andre only landed 7 total and significant attempts with that strikes with the takedown. Melquizil landed 27 total and significant. He had the submission attempt and was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. So while it was standing, he was the aggressor. Sometimes fighting in your hometown could be a little bit of a bad thing, and I think that was the case here. But Melquizil extends his winning streak to 2. He's 3-2 since 2023. And Andre starts a new losing streak. He moves to 2-3 since 2023. I actually was thinking Melquizil and Muhammad Naimov, but he gets that short notice turnaround in Mexico against Christian Rodriguez. And then for Andre Feely, how about Nate Landwehr? I think that's a great stylistic matchup. But yeah, the underdogs are coming in force. Your boy was hitting early with Ricky Simone. And then we had Ion Kutalaba with a round one submission via arm triangle over Ibo Aslan. And with all the finishes early, that was action-packed. And this fight, as expected, was very violent as Ibo came out, very aggressive, just throwing big looping shots, which turned this into a bar brawl. But Ibo actually had Ion rocked, and it looked like he might get a finish. But Kutalaba, as he was rocked, kind of desperately went and jumped on a leg, but he was able to get that into a takedown, recover, get back up, and both men were wildly throwing, but he opted to get another takedown, and I think Ibo kind of tired himself out because he was able to sink in that choke fairly easily because both men went 5 minutes, balls to the wall, probably a little bit too much, but Kutalaba was able to take advantage, another underdog victory. Your boy was filling himself with the picks, some parlays. Statistically, Ion landed 17 total strikes, 14 of them significant. He had 2 takedowns and 4 attempts, a submission attempt, and 1 minute and 6 seconds of control time. And Ibo landed 15 total and significant strikes. So Ion extends his winning streak to 2. He's 3-1 since 2023. And Ibo extends his winning streak to 4. He is 4-1 since 2023. So Ion and Alonzo Menefield, I think, would be an ideal matchup as both fought on this card, so same time frames. And Ibo and Rodolfo Bellato would be a ton of fun as well. Which set us up to the main card. I wasn't too sure about this, but another underdog coming to 8. Seattle had it all, man. Rob Font with a very close split decision victory over Gene Matsumoto. And what a battle this fight was. I mean, I'm surprised it wasn't fight of the night, to be honest. This was my pick for fight of the night. And I was surprised the judges gave it to Rob, but it was that close of a fight. And round 1 was the differentiating round on the scorecards, as that could have gone either way. But the judges opted to give Rob round 1, and where he definitely was aggressive in round 3, which he clearly won round 3. But honestly, it was the fact that I think Rob did land more damage in round one, although Gene got takedowns and was coming forward. But the fight for me was all about if Gene could continue to get the takedowns, and he did. He went 7 for 10 in his attempts for takedowns, but Rob has really been impressive, not just accepting the takedown, fighting his way to get back up to the feet. He had the cardio to battle over 7 takedowns and throw the volume that he did over the course of 15 minutes. And when it came to striking, Rob was doing well and was pushing forward. Now, Gene landed some nice kicks and combinations, but Rob's boxing was taking over in this fight. He was landing more damage. Gene's face was pretty bloodied up going into round 3. And again, this was also a very high-paced fight. Was oppressive output by both men. Gene is going to be a tough out. He looks like a solid fighter, still young, but Rob shows that he can still win fights if taken down. He still has the ability to beat anyone. He's beat 2 very good up-and-coming prospects in the undefeated Gene Matsumoto and Kyler Phillips in back-to-back fights. Bravo, round of applause to the veteran. Now, again, to defend all these takedowns and put this out there, very impressive as Rob landed 113 total strikes, 95 of them significant with a submission attempt and 1 minute and 18 seconds of control time. Gene landed 113 strikes as well, but only 77 of them significant. He was 7 for 10 in takedowns and had 6 minutes and 15 seconds of control time, so more than a round. So Rob extends his winning streak to 2. He's 3-2 since 2023. He moves up 1 spot in the rankings to number 8. And Gene suffers his first pro loss. He ends that 16-fight winning streak and starts a new losing streak. Now, I would like to see Gene fight Muin Gafurov. And I was thinking Rob and Mario Batista, but Batista got that fight. So let's get a new opponent for Rob. Some of this stuff just transpired today. Let's see. So Rob Font's number 8. How about Rob Font and Marcus McGee, who I believe is available? Let me double check. Marcus McGee is available. That is the next step. 2 strikers, another up-and-coming MMA lab prospect. Moving on, we had Anthony Hernandez with the unanimous decision over Brendan Allen in the co-main event. And honestly, for me not knowing they fought back in the LFA and watching that tape back, it was ironically funny how similar this fight was to the LFA title match years and years ago. Brendan coming out overly aggressive, going for submissions over positions, and Anthony made him pay for it. Round 1, Brendan had success with his striking, but Anthony was able to continually get Brendan down and hold him there. His top control was beautiful. A brutal spot for Brendan now, as he just needed to be technically sound. He could have been back on the winning path, but another massive win for Anthony Hernandez. I don't think you could underestimate Fluffy anymore. Statistically, Brendan landed 53 total strikes, only 14 significant. He had a submission attempt, 3 reversals, and 2 minutes and 58 seconds of control time. He was 0 for 1 in takedown attempts as well. And much like the LFA fight over 10 years ago, very good positioning, grappling, 50-50 positions, high IQ stuff. But Anthony landed 72 total, so about 20 more, doubled the significant output with 30. He had 2 reversals. He was 4 for 8 in takedowns, so 50%. And he had 10 minutes and 22 seconds of control time. For Brendan Allen, who is a grappler and wins through grappling, to be controlled for more than 2 rounds is very tough to take. But Anthony extends that winning streak to 7. He moves up 3 spots to number 9. And Brendan extends that losing streak to 2. He's 4-2 since 2023 and moves down 1 spot in the rankings to number 10. So what's next? Well, I think Anthony and Jack Hermanson seems like the appropriate matchup. And for Brendan, a showdown with Rainier de Ritter seems appropriate to me. Then in the main event, we had Song Yadong, one of the fights I got wrong. I picked Brendan Allen, took the underdog again. But Song Yadong with the unanimous decision over Henry Cejudo. And this, as I expected, was actually a solid kickboxing fight while it lasted. Song was just landing the cleaner shots and was the aggressor, throwing more volume, which is expected with the age difference. But Henry was landing good shots of his own. He had Song actually more beat up and bloodied throughout the fight than Henry looked. But Henry didn't attempt a lot of takedowns. When he did, Song defended well. And I think that forced Henry to want to stand and strike and prove a point. But then in round three, a brutal eye poke. It was a brutal eye poke. I don't doubt that Henry could see. He said he couldn't see, but his body language and the way he reacted was not good. That's not what you want to see. I did think Song won all 2.5 rounds going into the championship rounds because they finished the third round with the eye poke. They just went to the scorecards and gave it to Song. They didn't make it a no contest. Henry's super upset, but it's not fun to have eye pokes. We need to find a way to eliminate those because we're back to the new gloves. But you got to give Song credit. He's doing it. Statistically, Henry landed 67 total and significant strikes. He was 0 for 3 in takedown attempts. Big kudos to Song there. And Song landed 84 total and significant strikes while going 0 for 1 in takedown attempts. So Henry extends his losing streak to 3. He has not won since he came back from retirement. His last win was in May of 2020 against Dominic Cruz. So he moves down 2 spots in the rankings to number 9. And Song starts a new winning streak. He's 3-1 since 2023. He moves up 2 spots in the rankings to number 6. So I think Henry should just retire at this point. I do have a feeling he's going to give it one more shot, try to get a retirement fight. Dana clearly in the post-fight presser does not want to run this fight back. And Song deserves to fight up. He's earned it. He's fought a lot of big names. I think Umar Nurmagomedov seems like a win-win for both men. A stylistically appropriate fight for Umar. He's going to feel like he could win. Song's going to be game. So let's book that fight. And when it comes to Henry, who knows what can happen? He's going to have to fight down. Maybe fight a Montel Jackson or somebody of that nature. But for this weekend, we're back to the Apex for UFC Fight Night Vegas 103. A little bit early of a card with the prelims at 1 p.m. Pacific. The main card, 4 p.m. Pacific, all on ESPN+. To preview this card, I do think matchmaking-wise, there is some violent matchups, a lot like the Seattle card, but not a lot of big names. I do expect the fights to deliver with the good matchmaking, and it may be better than anticipated, but I am previewing this a 5 out of 10. Some good fights we will not break down. We have Contender Series alums Danny Silva taking on Lucas Almeida. 2 Contender Series alums going at it as well. Danny Barlow and Sam Patterson. And then Austin Lane is taking on Contender Series alum Mario Pinto. But let's kick this off in the prelims. I believe this guy started as plus odds, but now is the favorite. As we look to Thursday, close to the weekend, we have Charles Energy Johnson, 34 years old with a 17-6 record and the number 12 next to his name, taking on Ramazan Tamerlan Temirov, 28 years old with an 18-2-1 record. Now, Charles has really earned his way in the UFC. He has been very active and a fun fighter to watch, in my opinion. Now, Ramazan has entered the UFC with a bang, and since he's already 28, it's time for the UFC to give him stiff competition in the rankings because he's made slight work of the likes of CJ Vergara, so it's time to see what he's capable of. Breaking this down, Charles trains out of Murcielago MMA. He has a blue belt in BJJ. 2 of his last 4 fights have been fight of the night or performance of the night. He's showing up. He's showing out. He's an LFA alum and former champion with 2 defenses. He's on a 4-fight winning streak, is an impressive 5-3 since 2023. In less than 2 full years, he's had 8 fights. 7 of his 17 wins are via knockout. And in this fight, he's rocking a 7-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Ramazan is a Risen alum. He's on a 10-fight winning streak, 1-0 in the UFC. and 11 of his 18 wins are via knockout. Both impressive numbers for the flyweight division. Now, Ramazan hasn't been out of the first round in his last 5 fights. He's faced a good competitor in Vergara in his UFC debut, so he is somewhat proven, but he's definitely going to be rolling full of confidence and look to go to war with Charles and bring the fight to Charles. I do think Charles is more than okay with that. If he can last the fast flurry that Ramazan's going to provide, he should be able to put the young fighter in deep waters and make for a very fun fight. If Charles can hang with the likes of Joshua Van, which they fought at Elevation, I expect him to be able to handle Ramazan, but there are a lot of unknowns with him. I'm not super studied up on him, but I'm taking Charles Johnson. I am putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on. We have Montana De La Rosa, 30 years old with a 13-9-1 record, taking on Luana Dread Carolina, 31 years old with an 11-4 record. Now, this is an interesting fight between both women who are in their primes, on the latter half of them, but have been with the UFC for some time and are kind of in different places of late with how their career has been going. Breaking it down, Montana trains out of Team Elevation. Team Elevation has a full squad here on this card. She has a brown belt in BJJ. She's a Legacy FC, LFA, and Ultimate Fighter alum. 8 of her 13 wins are via submission, and she's on a 1-fight losing streak, only 1-2 since 2023. Now, Luana has a blue belt in Muay Thai and BJJ. She is a Dana White Contender Series alum. She's on a 3-fight winning streak. She's 3-1 since 2023, so she's been more active and had success. But looking at it, Luana, with the nice run she's on of late, she's solid. But she hasn't faced the level of competition that Montana has. And I believe that Montana's grappling is going to be the big difference here. Montana seems like she's almost in a must-win position after 3 losses in a row and a very close split decision win against Andrea Lee in June of last year. For that reason, I'm taking an underdog. I'm taking Montana De La Rosa, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. The dog's coming to eat. Hurrah! Another woman's showdown. We have JJ Aldrich, 32 years old with a 13-7 record, taking on Andrea KGB Lee, 36 years old with a 13-10 record. Now, I'm surprised that these ladies haven't squared off already. JJ is going to have the youth advantage, and Andrea is kind of in a bad spot after 5 consecutive losses, but she's a veteran. She's been there, done that. Breaking it down, JJ also trains out of Team Elevation. She has a 3rd-degree black belt in Taekwondo, a brown belt in BJJ. She's an Invicta alum, and she's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 2-2 since 2023. Now, Andrea has a Kaioshin style. She has a black belt in Kaioshin, a brown belt in Judo and BJJ, and a crew in Muay Thai. She is a true mixed martial artist. She's also an Invicta alum, a Legacy FC alum and former champ, an LFA alum and former champ with 1 defense. She also won the 2013 and 14 IKF World Classic Amateur Muay Thai Championships. She's tied with Jorge Masvidal, Clay Guida, Paul Felder, Courtney Casey, and Angela Hill for most split decision losses in UFC history with 4. Quite a bit of company there. She's on a 5-fight winning streak, 5-fight losing streak, and hasn't won since November of 2021, and 5 of her 13 wins are via submission. Now, Andrea has all the experience in the world, and still, although she's older, is a solid striker, but I do expect JJ's power and grappling to be the difference in this fight. JJ's going to look to make this fight ugly, while Andrea is more of a technical and clean striker that likes to fight at distance, so it's definitely a clash of styles. But I'm taking the younger JJ Aldrich, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. Moving on, we have John Sexy Mexi Castaneda, 33 years old with a 21-7 record, taking on Douglas D. Silva, Silva de Andrade, 39 years old with a 29-6 record. Now, this is also an interesting matchup between two men who have kind of had an up and down run in the UFC. They do have some quality wins, but really need that it moment, especially for Castaneda, who's in the middle of his prime. But Douglas is still a very solid and tough fighter, although he's almost 40. Breaking this down, John trains out of Bang Tao Muay Thai and MMA. He has a brown belt in BJJ. He's an RFA King of the Cage and Contender Series alum. 8 of his 21 wins are via knockout, 6 via submission, so 14 of his 21 wins via finish. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 2-1 since 2023, and he does have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. Now, Douglas has a boxing and BJJ style. He's a Jungle Fight alum. 20 of his 29 wins are via knockout. He's on a 1-fight losing streak and is 2-2 since 2022. Now, this is going to be a scrap, as that is the only way Douglas fights, even though his last 3 fights have been decisions, and they have been high-paced back-and-forth fights. Douglas has been fighting younger men in their primes, which is tough. But I do think this is going to be too much for him, as John is going to wear him out over the course of 15 minutes. But Douglas can knock anybody out. I am taking John Castaneda, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. Moving on, we have Chepe Machine Gun Mariscal, 32 years old with a 17-6 record, taking on Ricardo Carcina Ramos, 29 years old with a 17-6 record. Now, when this fight got announced, I got super excited. Just thinking about the potential of the striking exchanges, the violence between these two men, it's true mixed martial arts beauty. But Chepe is more of a traditional striker. He just kind of comes at you 0 to 100, but he is very durable. Ricardo is more of a finesse fighter who comes at you with speed and unorthodox combinations, much like Yair Rodriguez. But with both men being in their primes, and Ricardo have kind of been in a spot where he's got his back against the wall the past few years, it should make this fight even more fun. Breaking it down, and I do think this has fight of the night potential. I'm surprised it's on the prelims. But Chepe also trains out of Elevation Fight Team. He has a judo style. He's a Ring of Combat, LFA, Cage Fury, and Cage Warriors alum. He's on a 7-fight winning streak and is 4-0 in the UFC. Now, Ricardo trains out of Team Alpha Male. He has a black belt in BJJ. He's a Legacy FC alum. He's on a 1-fight winning streak and is 1-2 since 2023. 7 of his 17 wins are via submission, and 3 of his 6 losses are also via submission. So to submit or be submitted. He is also rocking a 3-inch reach advantage. Now, this first round is going to be aggressive and wild. I'm not sure it goes into round 2, to be honest. Both men have shown to be very aggressive and kind of tire out, so they are going to have to be conservative. I think whoever's cardio is in better shape will have a huge advantage, and I am interested to see if Chepe's power turns Ricardo into a grappler. That may be the way for Ricardo as well. But I am taking Chepe Mariscal, but I'm avoiding this on any parlays where possible. Moving on to the main card, we have William Jaguar Gomez, 27 years old with a 14-2 record, taking on Hyder the Hurricane Emil, 34 years old with an undefeated 10-0 record. Now, Hyder is near the end of his prime at 34. I think the prime is 30 to 35, and he definitely needs to move up the ladder board quickly. Now, William has faced stiffer competition, and he really impressed me in his last fight against Joe Anderson Brito. He is really turning into a well-rounded fighter. Breaking this down, William trains out of the MMA Factory. He's a Cage Warriors alum. He's on a 12-fight winning streak and is 4-0 in the UFC. 7 of his 14 wins are via knockout. And he does have a 3-inch reach advantage and a 4-inch leg reach advantage. Now, Hyder is a Bellator, LFA, and Contender Series alum. He's undefeated on a 10-fight winning streak and is 3-0 in the UFC. 6 of his 10 wins are via knockout. Now, Hyder is an absolute powerhouse. He has only gone to the scorecards once in the UFC. He made slight work out of a very solid and well-rounded Zhang Yang Li, but I don't think he's going to be able to enter the striking distance against William here very easily, as he has a lot of long attacks like teep kicks, kicks in general, and a nice long parrying jab. But if William can get out of the first round, I like his chances that much more. He's just had a very similar outcome against a powerhouse in Brito. For that reason, I'm taking the Jaguar, William Gomez, but I'm also avoiding this on any parlays. These are very tight fights. I did see a social media post circling that a lot of undefeated fighters have given up their zeros. I think we see another one here for Hyder Emil. Moving on, we have Esteban El Gringo Rabovics, 28 years old with a 14-1 record, taking on Nasrat Haparist, 29 years old with a 17-5 record. Now, this is another absolutely fun fight that could be fight of the night. Esteban has really come onto the scene of late, and his last win against Daniel Zellhuber was honestly a low-key fight of the year and one of the best fights I've ever seen in person at the Sphere. That was really the highlight of the show. But Nasrat is on a roll as well. He has fought better competition, but he hasn't fared well when he takes on big names. I think this is his chance to get back on track. Breaking it down, Esteban is a Contender Series alum. He's on a 3-fight winning streak. He's 3-1 in the UFC. 7 of his 14 wins are via knockout, 5 via submission, so 12 of his 14 via finish. And Nasrat is a southpaw fighter. He trains out of TriStar. He's on a 4-fight winning streak. 10 of his 17 wins are via knockout, and he's rocking a 3-inch reach advantage. Now, I do think that Nasrat is more well-rounded, but man, is Esteban striking on fire. He's been punishing his opponents, and he is full of confidence. Plus, going 15 minutes at the pace he did against Zellhuber was a huge prove-it moment for me. But it's wild to think that Nasrat has been with the UFC for 8 years and he's only 29. He's also rolling right now as he enters his prime. But this is going to be a boxing showdown. I don't expect any grappling. So over the course of 15 minutes right now, I'm going with the more experienced fighter. I'm taking the underdog, Nasrat Haparist. The dog's coming to eat. But once again, not that confident, avoiding this on any parlays. Then we have the co-main, and how this is the co-main honestly baffles me. Cody Brundage must have got a plus bonus for the willingness to fight Bo Nickel. But we have Julian, the Cuban Missile Crisis Marquez, 34 years old with a 9-5 record, taking on Cody Brundage, 30 years old with a 10-6 record. Again, I'm honestly shocked this is positioned in the co-main, but maybe they expect both men to be aggressive and just go at it right off the rip. But Julian hasn't won since 2021, and his only quality win in the UFC was his Contender Series win over Phil Haas. Now, Cody's kind of had a weird run the past few years, as he's had some no contests and some cancellations due to elbow incidents at the back of his head. But he does seem to show improvement. We saw that in the nickel fight. He is in his prime at 30 years old, and he has 2 wins in 2023, but he's still seeking consistency and a quality win. Breaking this down, Julian is an orthodox fighter. He trains out of the MMA lab. He has a purple belt in BJJ. He's a Bellator, LFA, and Contender Series alum. He's on a 3-fight losing streak, and his last win was April of 2021 against Sam Alvey. 6 of his 9 wins are via knockout. 3 of his 5 losses are via knockout. So to knock out or be knocked out. Now, both of these men actually used to train at Factory X, which is intriguing. I'm sure they've trained together. But I believe that both men have lackluster striking, but Julian utilizes kicks very well, but Cody is a better grappler. I think the grappling pays off in a big way in this fight if he fights smart and doesn't make this a brawl. For that reason, I'm taking Cody Brundage. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. Moving on to the main event. We have Asu Zulfikar Almabayev, 31 years old with a 21-2 record and the number 6 next to his name, taking on Manel Starboy Kopp, 31 years old with a 20-7 record and the number 8 next to his name. Now, this main event is your classic striker versus grappler showdown. Manel has been in a similar position when he fought Muhammad Makayev, so this should be fun. Manel put on an absolute stunning performance in December against Bruno da Silva, and he seems to have leveled up, and the time is now for him while he's in his prime at 31. In that fight, he almost looked like he was so far ahead of his opponent. He was doing the Anderson Silva moments. He was showing off, and he just looked like he was a Super Saiyan in that fight for you Dragon Ball Z fans. Now, Asu has been grappling and choking out his opponents in the UFC this far, but if he's not able to get Manel down and keep him there, it's going to be a long evening. Breaking it down, Asu is an orthodox fighter. He's a Fight Nights Global Brave, an M1 alum, and former champion. He's on a 17-fight winning streak, 4-0 in the UFC. 9 of his 21 wins are via submission. Now, Manel trains out of AKA Thailand. He's a Risen alum and former champion. He's on a 1-fight winning streak, 2-1 since 2023. 12 of his 20 wins are via knockout, and he has a 3-inch reach and leg reach advantage. Now, I do think Asu has the ability to take Manel down, but I don't know if he could do it enough and hold him down hold him down to be able to steal rounds. The fact is that it's a 5-round fight. Has me kind of want to lean to Asu because Manel hasn't been in a 5-round fight. Asu really hasn't either since he won the M1 title in 2019, but I think the length favors him. Manel is going to be the better striker all around. I do think he will have shots and combos planned for when Asu tries to close distance, get knees up the middle, and I think he's going to find a way to get the job done. His performance last time was too great. I expect to see greatness from Manel Kopp. For that reason, I am taking Manel Kopp. We are putting him on that parlay. We marking that ish down, and we getting that bread. So solid little fight night card, but next weekend we're back to pay-per-view in T-Mobile. UFC 313. We finally, the much anticipated showdown, Alex Poatan Pereira taking on Magomed Ankalaev. I can't wait for that one. But that is the episode. I'm your host, Shane Gillette. Cheers to the weekend. I'll see you next week.